Aquarius archetype. And so this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be teaching everybody the archetypes and really getting an understanding of how these things are operating within our consciousness. So the Aquarius archetype is in our consciousness to create three things, okay? Firstly, its relationship towards Saturn or Capricorn, okay? The reason why it starts off with Capricorn and Saturn, or Uranus and Aquarius, and those being really, really interconnected with each other, is because when we have the nature of something that is crystallized, okay, it needs a certain form, or consciousness in itself needs a certain form to exist within, to understand itself, okay? So if you actually had to observe the flower of life, you'll notice that what happens is that it forms itself, okay? And then at some point it starts to create a square, a matrix square within itself, right? So the flower of life is a circle that expands, expands, expands. And then eventually at some point it starts to create form, i.e. A body, a context. And so the same thing actually gets represented through the human body in itself. Like when you observe how the egg gets fertilized, and then at some point we start to then develop over a process of time a physical body, right? And that physical body in itself then becomes, over a period of time, the container in which we exist within. All right. So you can see that as the clay in which we are formed out of, all right? And then what happens from that point is that we then as beings evolve through that clay in which we chose to incarnate into, okay? So the body in itself is forming, and then we incarnate into it from a spiritual perspective. And so this is where we have spirit and matter, okay? And so what happens here when we're looking at the Aquarius archetype within our consciousness is that we have this form that we evolve into, yet simultaneously it's limited. So the limitation that is essentially in the form stops us from essentially existing outside in a timelessness fashion and experiencing ourselves in the physicality. Right? These are really sort of silly ways to describe this stuff, but it's really important for us to understand the relationship we have to the physical, and that the formation of the physical is our own desire to evolve through it. So those limitations are a part of this cycle, okay? However, at some point, in order for evolution in itself to operate and to move forward, it needs to create necessary liberating factors, liberating situations that breaks that mold so that a new mold can then be reshaped based on new and deconditioned ways of being. Okay, so we would then consider this to be transformation. This is why transformation in itself is associated with Aquarius, not transmutation, not transcendence, but pardon me, I've just lost my words over here. It's funny how I was on a roll there. Transformation, right? It's still the same form essentially in the way that the parameters are there, but and so that we're operating, but our form in which we operate through that is different. Okay, so a very simple way that keeps on coming to mind is we have a house, we liberate ourselves from that house, we move into a new house. The nature of that house is still the same. Everybody has a door, everybody has walls, etc. Yet the outlook of it is different, right? So that can be a way to see it. And then, of course, our interaction with it has new routines, new ways of being. So Aquarius is that energy that takes us from the form that we are now existing in, that is limiting, that has been outgrown. And that's the key word, outgrown. And then reshaping it into something that is going to facilitate the next evolutionary cycle. Okay. So that would be part 2 of the Aquarius archetype, is our realization of the new form that we're existing within and the insights and experiences that are coming with that. Okay. The final process, and this is why the Aquarian archetype is then perceived as the um, the man, as you can see over here, pouring the water or higher consciousness into the physicality, right? So this correlates then to the Promethean archetype, where when we accelerate our evolution, we are essentially taking insights from a time space that is different to the one that we're existing in, and then acting upon those impulses, leading us into new directions that emancipates us from the past. Okay? So the totality of Aquarius is to break the form, to allow us to then understand, to regroup and reclay the new form, and then to live by those insights and understandings, allowing us to evolve from space to space to space relative to different times. Pretty neat, isn't it? So evolving through the veils of illusion as this Aquarius moon comes into place is our relationship to a new paradigm that we are existing in, and the realization of what that paradigm is since 2012.